Good afternoon. My name is Karma, and I will be talking to you today about the phenomenon of woke, what it means, where it came from, and how it became a bad thing in the eyes of conservative politicians. So, what does the word woke mean? Where did it come from? To better understand, we have to go back to the beginning. And the first time we heard the phrase woke was in an afterword by blues singer Huddie Ledbetter. He's better known as the singer Lead Belly, and he wrote a song in 1938 about Scottsboro Boys. The Scottsboro Boys were a group of 9 young black men who were on a train down in Alabama, and they were accused of raping 2 white women, while eventually one of the women recanted and they were exonerated. The boys spent years in Alabama prisons fighting through different trials and fighting for their freedom in many cases. Huddie Ledbetter, Lead Belly, met them through their lawyer, and he wrote a song about it. And in the afterword, his advice was, he said, "I advise everybody to be a little careful when they go along down through there in Alabama. Best stay woke, to keep the eyes open." The phrase was in reference to racism being very much alive and well, and pretty much uncontested in the Deep South in the 1930s. This was going to go on for many years, and the phrase "stay woke" was a common phrase used for people who were traveling down through the area. The 1936 Green Book was written to help people, especially people of color, when they had to travel. It highlighted places that were amenable to serving black people or people of color, and it also let them know where the sundown towns were, where people could get hurt really quickly, unfortunately. The warning continued to be a part of the conversation for many, many moons, but the phrase really got a boost in 2005 when a fabulous artist named Georgia Ann Muldrow recorded a song that she called Master Teacher. And in the song, she sings the chorus, "I'd stay woke." Erykah Badu, who is much more well known, heard the song and re-recorded it in 2008. It brought the phrase "stay woke" into more common use, and it got a lot more frequently used after Erykah released the song. Little did we know how much we were going to need that advice over the next few years. When we fast forward to 2014, we had the shooting of teenager Michael Brown by the police there in Ferguson, Missouri. And out of that came riots and protests, and the police were not responding well at all. They were using rubber bullets, which are still, they're less lethal, but they're not non-lethal. They used tear gas, water cannons, and out of all of this, the Black Lives Matter movement came about, and they used "stay woke" to warn people about not only the police brutality in reaction to their protesting about police brutality, but also about the people that were trying to co-opt the movement and use the protests as a cover for just pandemonium and chaos and violence and destruction. So the phrase "stay woke" was very much part in 2014, very much a part of the vernacular, and it was very much focused on social justice and the lack thereof that people of color are facing every day. It was also very much being used as a word to recognize and to about the awareness of inherent racism in our institutions that govern everyday life, the prison populations, our school to prison pipelines, these things that they really began to bring to the forefront and make a part of everyday conversations. Around that same time, Elaine Richardson, who was a professor of literacy studies at The Ohio State University, was quoted as saying, "Woke comes out of the experience of Black people, of knowing that you have to be conscious of race, class, gender, systemic racism, ways that society is stratified and not equal." Unfortunately, like most things, when they are co-opted by society at large, the word really started to lose its meaning, and taken out of context and used in a vacuum by people who were not part of the struggle, it began to lose the spirit of that word as well. And now we have the right, Republicans, conservative politicians who have taken woke and completely subverted its original meaning. Not only is woke now an insult, but it has also become a major plank in the 2024 presidential election GOP platform. The conservatives are railing against woke ideology, with Ron DeSantis quoted as saying that woke is a form of cultural Marxism. It's about putting merit and achievement behind identity politics, and it's basically a war on the truth. Vivek Ramaswamy, another Republican contender for president, says wokeness is, quote, all about progressive identity politics. Basically, being woke means obsessing about race, gender, and sexual orientation. Oh, and maybe climate change too, end quote. And Nikki Haley, the first female governor of South Carolina and the former U.S. ambassador to the United Nations under the Trump administration, very confidently stated that wokeness is, quote, a virus more dangerous than any pandemic, hands down. So how on earth did a call to compassion and empathy become an attack on American values? How did an admonition to vigilance against injustice and inequality become a synonym for everything that's wrong with our country? much of it boils down to perception. The most vocal opponents say that wokeness places too much focus on the identity of the group, Native Americans, Asian Americans, Black Americans, over an individual's character and achievements. They believe that the emphasis on identity politics fosters an us versus them atmosphere and divides us rather than unites us as a society. Others believe that woke leads to a suppression of the opinion of those who disagree with any woke ideology, evoking a fear of reprisals for opposing those ideologies. They invoke cancel culture as the boogeyman of leftist politics, the silencing of anyone who doesn't comply or conform. Opponents of woke culture see calls for equity, tolerance, inclusion, diversity, and acceptance of different lifestyles, religions, and relationships as a challenge to traditional family values. They see it as a threat to the status quo and an undermining of our societal norms, and thus destroying the fabric of our country, according to President Trump. And finally, there are those who say that the liberals who are pushing the woke agenda focus too much on the past and on the sins of our forefathers. They believe that the left refuses to acknowledge the progress that's been made in the intervening years, and they say that liberals want to present a history to the next generation that sees every white person as a racist and every black person or person of color as a victim. Their solution is to whitewash history, to make everything more palatable, and to make sure that white people never feel uncomfortable about our past. So where does that leave us now? It's hard to say. As the world continues to grapple with woke and what it means, and woke continues to shape policy, either directly or indirectly, as a response or as a reaction, we have to confront our own prejudices. We have to find a way to treat each other with empathy and compassion. We must maintain an open mind and an open heart to the diverse population that globalization has created. And we must approach every interaction with compassion and empathy and seek to find our commonalities instead of looking for the things that separate us. And finally, we have to continue to insist that our elected officials enact laws that are fair and just for everybody, not just for those who wield power. Thank you.